Today in the Texas Tribune Weekend Insider. Graduation rates in Texas public schools have been on the rise, particularly in larger school districts like Houston, Dallas, and Austin. Track the stats of any public school in Texas with the Texas Tribune's new Public Schools Explorer. Before you check schools, we'll check in with Aman Bathija, who was on the road to cover the Republican U.S. Senate runoff campaign. When Ted Cruz was the Texas Solicitor General, he argued before the U.S. Supreme Court more than any practicing lawyer in Texas or any current member of Congress. Cruz's work before the nation's highest judicial body serves as the cornerstone of his U.S. Senate campaign as a fighter for the U.S. Constitution.
This is Aman Bathija with the Texas Tribune on the road in Dallas covering the U.S. Senate race between David Dewhurst and Ted Cruz. My story focuses on Ted Cruz's tenure as Texas Solicitor General. He held the position for about 5.5 years. Overall, Cruz has argued before the U.S. Supreme Court 9 times, which is more than any practicing lawyer in Texas and any current member of U.S. Congress. It puts him in a very elite group of lawyers that have argued before the U.S. Supreme Court multiple times. Those cases have allowed Cruz to talk about his experience defending conservative values such as U.S. sovereignty and religious freedom and the right of states to use the death penalty. Cruz is using this experience to frame himself as someone who has fought for conservative values and has fought for the Constitution. And he uses those cases as to say he's a fighter and to say that Dewhurst hasn't proven that he can fight and win for those causes. Cruz has never held elected office before, so these cases have allowed him to have a record that voters can look to and find a reason to support him. Early voting starts this Monday, and Ted Cruz enters that phase of the race, leading Dewhurst according to a few polls. If he does win this race, he will have Greg Abbott to thank in many ways, as Abbott provided him the opportunity to take on these cases and to give him a record that he was able to campaign on over the last year.
Graduation rates in Texas have been on the rise for the past 4 years, and we're seeing that now, especially in some of the state's larger school districts like Houston ISD, Dallas ISD, and Austin ISD. And that's significant because these school districts do serve a large portion of economically disadvantaged kids. They have a high population of Hispanic kids, and as you look at population trends in Texas, that is increasingly going to be like what the public school population is going to look like. When you look at what these school districts are doing and talk to school leaders there, they say, well, we have learned to kind of segment out the different reasons that kids are not graduating. Either it's because they are falling behind in classes, or they're having to work jobs and it's difficult for them to get to school during the day, or they've become discouraged in some other way. So they've been leveraging specific programs targeted at all of those different reasons. If you go to our public schools app at texastribune.org that we just launched this week, we have about 7 years of data on graduation rates for all school districts across Texas. And it's really interesting because you can see that it was only about 3 or 4 years ago where we started seeing this steady climb in graduation rates for school districts. Before that, we had a high in about 2004, and it dipped down. And it's really interesting to see that those trends play out across all of the school districts in the state and pretty much across all demographic groups. The challenge for these school districts that are seeing success in their graduation rates will, of course, be the fallout from budget cuts during the last legislative session, and also meeting the increased accountability standards that have been brought in by the STAR exams.